Hi, Ashley. It's so nice to see you. Today I have,
Yes.
oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I'm so glad that we actually get to see each other virtually. We've been communicating via email, but I'm glad we're able to see each other on Zoom.
Yeah, it's nice to see you too. So, this is Ashley Nicole Green. And Ashley, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is obviously Ashley. I am an attorney here in the Houston, Texas and surrounding areas. And we practice in my firm, specifically family law. We have been in practice since 2015. I do a lot of different cases from child custody, divorce, adoptions. And so, a lot of the things that we were going to talk about today, I have actually had the opportunity to help clients through those things, or I have experienced them as part of a client's process and needing to kind of push them into that direction. So, I love what I do. I have two small kids, so I get the idea of having the struggles of balancing life and the things that go with that, as well as trying to be the best that you can be in terms of your job and understanding where clients come from when they're going through the divorce process and trying to balance all of that because it's a lot for me and I'm not going through a divorce. So I can only imagine individuals who have small children. And yeah, so I have those two kiddos. My husband and I have been married for almost 10 years. We love to travel and do things with them. We're very big about giving back to the community. Outside of my role in being an attorney, I'm super active in our community. I coach my son's baseball and basketball team. So I don't know how I make the time to do it, but children are very important to me, and my own children also are. So yeah, I'm excited to talk today.
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. So, yeah, sounds like you do have a lot on your plate. Um, one thing I noticed on your Instagram is that you are helping women build a community. And so you and I wrote a blog about that, and I'm happily remarried, but when I got a divorce, I was in Hong Kong and I was way far away from my family and my friends. And so when you asked to write the blog about community, I thought that's great because that was challenging for
Yeah.
me too, right? So you brought up some great points about even if you have a community, sometimes it can be tricky, right? Because you have in-laws and friends and people who might want to separate from you or have their own ideas and you might want to start
Mhm.
over. Would you like to talk more about that?
Yeah, so we do have a big event that we have coming up on May 6th, and that's what we've really been talking about on Instagram. And I'm really big about building community, as you mentioned, specifically not just for women, but for clients in general. But this particular event that you've been seeing is about women and building that community. And the importance of that is that a lot of times I had clients earlier on in my career where they would come to me as their attorney and they wanted me to serve as their counselor, their attorney, their therapist, their financial advisor, their friend, all of those things. And one, there's just not enough time in the day for me to be able to do all of that. And second, I went to law school. I'm not a therapist, I'm not a financial advisor, I'm not a counselor. And I don't have that connection with you as you may have with like a good friend or a family member solely because I'm your attorney. And so I stepped back at one point in maybe like halfway through my years of practice and said, I need to revamp how I establish my attorney client relationships with my clients because this seems to be a reoccurring issue. And I didn't want to have to keep having those difficult conversations with clients of saying, well, stop, we're not going to talk about that. I'm not your therapist, because those are difficult conversations for me to have because I didn't want to come off as being rude or I didn't care, but I just didn't have the time and balancing all of my other cases and then life, as you see, that I'm busy. And so now I kind of, at the beginning of establishing that relationship, I really, really push my clients to understand that, look, this is my role and this is what I'm here to help you do. And I'm more than happy to help you build this community of other individuals that need to be part of this process to help you with your finances, to help you with the emotions of going up and down and just figuring out how to co-parent. How do you respond to certain messages? And then having a mentor or coach or someone like that as well, because a lot of times people kind of interchangeably use the term therapist, counselor, mentor, coach, but those are two distinctively different things. And so I help them from the beginning understand those different roles. And from there, with each of my clients, I build their community for what they feel that they need. And so that's really why I started doing it. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So, for those of you who don't know, I'm a coach in the US and I help people with divorce and trauma. And then in Hong Kong, I'm still a psychologist. So, yes, there is a difference. But either as a psychologist or as a coach, some of the ways that I help people find a community is just sometimes you have to think, well, what have I put aside to take care of my kids or my husband or my wife? And what have I
Mhm.
been wanting to learn? And so sometimes there's built-in communities like what you're setting up, which is fantastic. I remember when I went through my divorce, I spent a lot of time in the gym and I made a lot of friends
Mm.
there. So that felt like a built-in community. And at the
Yeah.
same time, I could be healthy, right? And so
Mhm.
research shows volunteer work helps a lot, helps people to feel better about themselves, help them find community, help to rebuild their identity. Um,
Mhm.
what do you think has helped your clients, or have you seen after the divorce the groups that they've been attracted to?
I think one of the ones that you hit on big a lot is that they kind of refocus on their health because divorce is very stressful. Some people kind of tend to binge eat or they will use food as a way to cope with that. And so they may put on some pounds or they may go in the opposite direction and stop eating, not prioritize their health, just kind of snack all day because they don't have enough time to sit down and have a proper meal. And so I do see them learning to prioritize their health. And then I think one of the other biggest things that I see, especially after the divorce process, is how to manage your finances because when you are married, you think about your future and you're never going to, think about in terms of, okay, if I get divorced, then my retirement needs to be here versus what it needs to be if I'm married. But when a divorce happens, that's your reality. You have to step back and say, okay, now I'm divorced. I was counting on my spouse having X amount in their retirement and me contributing as well. But now I still have to provide for a future for myself as a retirement. And then also, if you have children, planning for college, planning for life after, divorce in general with finances and budgeting and stuff. And so that's another big one that I see that I think people take for granted and they think that they can sit down with a pen and paper and just make it happen. But really having that expert in your life to help you is vital and important. And actually, one of the individuals that is part of the event that we're hosting on May 6th, she's actually a past client, which I have permission to share that. And she came to me after having an attorney with her for probably about 6 months into her divorce, and she not feeling like she had that community. And so she came to me and I helped her. Fast forward about a year and a half later, she reached out and said, you know what, Ashley, I would love to build this community because this is something that you helped me with, and I think other people need it. So here we are now, years later, helping other individuals. And, one of the beautiful things about her story is that she took my advice about a financial advisor very seriously. After her divorce, she was in a lot of debt, mostly credit card debt that was run up by the other party. And she was really swamped at the end. I remember her feeling a sigh of relief when we got her final decree back from the court, but also feeling anxious like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to take care of my child and I? And so she's so happy to report as of the beginning of this year, just 3 years later, she is now completely debt free. And she attributes that to the fact that she went and hired a financial advisor. So it's very, very important that you build your community, I think, at least in speaking to a financial advisor.
Yeah, those are some great pointers. And you bring up something which, George Bonanno at Teachers College, Columbia University, calls coping ugly. And it happens,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's that grief. It's that I'm just going to drink it off, eat it off, whatever to get through. And
Mm-hmm.
that's okay in the beginning, right? Because we all grieve differently, but eventually we're going to need to get back on track. And so learning something new, going to the gym, eating healthy. And if people are struggling with binge eating or restricting calories and it becomes serious, I think that's a really important time to reach out for help. And so there's so many losses, right? It's not just the loss of your partner, it's the loss of finance, it's the loss of possibly
Mm-hmm.
your home, your community. And so a financial advisor is a good idea. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so you can, those big emotions that come up, you can deal with it in many different ways. And so if you are coping ugly in the beginning, I think one important thing is not to add shame to it. Start beating yourself
Mm-hmm.
up because then it's going to get bigger and spiral more and more out of control. So sometimes support groups can help with that as well. Other, people who are also going through something similar. Um, there's also virtual support groups. So there's all kinds of divorce groups or finance groups. Have you come across any finance groups?
So finance groups, most of the time that I've seen them, they've been like a 1 day thing, and they don't really dive into a lot of the important aspects. I think it's more of an introductory, but I have seen them. Some of them have been like webinars based, and some of like virtual, which is great for people that can't get out and make that time. But I have seen some that are in person, and so I strongly encourage you to like reach out to someone in your area, reach out to different professionals to see if that's an option because you'll be surprised what's out there. There's a lot of people that are going through what you're going through, um, unfortunately, but thankfully at the same time. This isn't the first person that's gone through a divorce, and you won't be the last person. However, if you are able to connect with individuals that have similar interests that you do, that's like one of the most powerful things because it allows for you to no longer suppress those feelings and have that shame that you just mentioned, but also be able to build a community and understand how to take the next steps in this journey with someone who is of like mind like you. And I think when you're going through a divorce or shortly after it, that's really important because sometimes the divorce process can really beat you down because you started off in your marriage thinking that you and your spouse are on the same page, and then things switch really quickly and you're on opposite ends of things, and so you no longer have that like-mindedness with your spouse, and you kind of feel like like your mind and you're like second guessing everything, you're not sure of yourself. And so having someone around you that is like-minded is good because you can say, okay, that my feelings aren't some crazy thing that I have in my head. I no longer have to suppress that. So I think that's very, very important.
Yeah, and that is an important aspect of grief is feeling like you're losing it. You're losing your mind.
Mhm.
You can't think as quickly, everything's slower. And part of the loss is part of your identity. And
Mm.
so, like you said, this is my life with my partner. This is how we thought things were going. My identity is a wife or husband. Now that part of my identity is gone. The friends we shared, my in-laws.
Mhm.
This is, I think, a good thing about the rebuilding the community is now it's okay, who am I now? And that's part of the loss. That's part of the overwhelm. That's part of the confusion. And that takes time and that's okay. And so even kind of experimenting with different groups, different gyms, and getting over that hump of, I don't know anyone. It's going to be scary.
Mhm.
Just walking in and seeing what happens. Because a lot of times these support groups or volunteer works or gyms, they're quite friendly and they're happy to see you. So, yeah, before we end, is there anything else you'd like to add, Ashley?
I think one of the most powerful things that you do, and what we actually, connected on that, was that you do offer your sessions, and I think in different segments. I don't know if they're how long the weeks are, but I think it is important that if you are scared, as you mentioned, to kind of get out there and go to a support group in person, that these particular things that are being offered virtually. If you connect with Monica, she offers this as an awesome opportunity for you not to have to really get out of the comfort of your home. You could be in your pajamas, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think she makes you dress up all professional.
Yeah.
And that can be another way for you to connect with someone, to be able to have some, first steps in your journey towards building that community. And so don't think that your process of building community has to look the same as the person that's down the street from you, or your cousin, or your friend, or your high school, colleague, or high school classmate, or your colleague from college. Everyone's process is different. And just because you may do things a little bit different than someone else does not mean that you are not on track. And so I just wanted to end with that, because I think, Monica, you do an awesome job in terms of allowing for people to start somewhere, especially when they're nervous at the beginning with your particular programs, especially with them being online.
Thanks, Ashley. That's really kind of you to say. And I'm really happy to see you today. And I can tell from speaking with you that you are a fantastic family attorney who cares and also tries to build community. So I really appreciate that. And I look
Yeah,
forward
thank you.
to working with you again.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. And I look forward to us working together again as well.
Thank you too. Have a good day.
You too.